Authors Plus.
Whatever. Okay, today's the 21st of October,
Yes.
and my name is Vanessa.
Hi, Vanessa.
First of all, maybe introduce yourself to the audience and myself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am Johanka Hart-Tompkins. I was born in a beautiful city, Karlovy Vary, in Czechoslovakia, which at the time was occupied by the Soviet Union. And that regime was not tolerant of religious freedoms and freedom of speech. So my family escaped under gunfire over the Yugoslav border into Italy, and we became refugees in Germany. But my father really wanted the American dream. He felt that America was still the country of opportunity where you could pursue your dreams. And so we immigrated to America when I was 11 and lived in Cincinnati, where I became a teacher of Russian and of German, and raised my family there. My 3 kids were all professional and successful artists. And I became very interested in changing hats from teaching to being an author.
Alright, so from your background, I hear a lot of inspiration already for the book. Can you tell us more about what made you write the book and what you thought about while writing it?
So my grandmother was a great storyteller. Instead of telling us bedtime stories in books, she would tell us all about her family, about her inspirational, interesting life. And I lost her for a long time when we escaped. And then 30 years later, she was able to move to us in America and renewed all of those stories in me and inspired me to write her amazing life story.
Okay, so to get more into the book, can you give us a little overview or summary about what happens in there without spoiling, of course?
Okay. Yes, so Slavka was born into a home of musicians. Her father was a violinist for her philharmonics, and she grew up with music, with laughter, with a lot of Czech traditions, a lot of Czech cuisine, and the love of the arts, which is this bohemian way of living. So it starts with her being 18, finding a job with a war hero who had escaped from Siberia during World War I, and then became the richest man of Leibnitz. So she became employed with him, but he also fell in love with her. She was in love with a young count who was only 19, and there was a triangle love story, which ended up in tragedies. She was such a free spirit that she broke social norms, and therefore things happened that were kind of devastating to her, and she had to go on a journey to find love and happiness again.
It seems like Slavka is a very, very deep and complex character. Can you tell us more about where you got the inspiration to write this character, or if she's based on anyone you know, or maybe yourself a little?
So I feel that the plot was written for me by history, right? What my grandfather shared with me. But of course, a lot of the opinions that Slavka voices are actually from me and from the research that I have done of her times. So I've done a lot of studies in family histories and also in interviews and writings by people of the time. So I could fill in those gaps of what my grandmother did not share with me through all the research that I've done.
So when you wrote the book, was there like different rituals you kind of did every day, or was there like a routine you did to write it?
Yeah. So I could only write during the summers, yes? And so my summer vacation wasn't a vacation, it was time to write. And I would get up around 7 o'clock, do a lot of research on the internet. Thank goodness for the internet. I couldn't have written it without the internet, honestly. But I would then, around 9 or 10, begin writing about the next portion of the life. And I think my most inspirational paragraphs were when I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and write till 5. That seemed to be like the Holy Spirit comes to you and lets you write things that come from within instead of from your mind. And those are passages that still make me cry of joy and of sorrow.
Other than only having specific times of the day where you can write the best, were there other challenges you had to overcome while writing, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, because I could write only 3 months of the year, and then I was a teacher for the 9 months, I'd have to reread everything to get back into my storyline, my characters, to relearn them. But in a way, that was really kind of a positive thing that made me reread it over and over again.
So you mentioned before that you used a lot of the internet. Were there other researches you did, and how did you use them in your book?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I studied in Vienna, and I researched where my grandfather was in the Philharmonic and the history of that. I went to Salzburg and was part of that scene as well, with music and operas. I visited Leitmeritz numerous times. I got books from the different vendors about the past of Leitmeritz when my grandmother and grandfather lived. And then I would find our documentation of birth and death, and where everyone lived and what their full names were. So those were all really cool things that I would have never found out had I not gone to document everything that my grandmother had talked about.
All right. So, as a writer myself, I see a lot of writer's block that stops authors from writing. How long did it take for you to write the book from start to finish, knowing that you only had 3 months of the year to write it?
So it took me 12 years. I did not expect that. I really didn't. And I'm going to be changing hats again soon to become a full-time writer. So hopefully the next one will take me 2 years instead of 12. And then, of course, there was the problem of being a new writer and trying to find a publisher to publish your book and edit your book. So that was very difficult. And I would say that doing it without an agent is like going to court without a lawyer. It's a brutal experience. So I would say that getting an agent would be good if you can find one and you can afford one. But if not, then I found a way through getting a small publisher and working with them. It was kind of painstaking. It took a whole year to edit and to get it into production. But it did work.
So you mentioned before that the plot was for yourself. Do you have any messages or morals that you put into the book that you were trying to convey to the readers?
Yes. So the spirit of this Bohemian spirit of Slavka and her family is one that they can overcome so much tragedy and so much loss with faith and with the love of the world and the beauty in the world. And I'm hoping that that spirit will not only, as it has inspired me and my children, that I can inspire all my readers to understand that life is beautiful, it is precious, and needs to be nurtured, and that you find it through a connection with the Creator, but also a connection with the beauty in the world.
All right, so that was at the same time kind of something that you wanted to convey to the readers as messages, but also something that's really important to yourself.
Yes, correct. Yes.
All right.
I told these stories to my students, and they would always say, "Oh my gosh, it's so inspirational. I want to live like that." And you need to bring this to a larger audience than just your students. And so that was also a motivation for me to write.
It seems like a very memorable moment in the process of writing the book. Do you have any other stories or experiences that you really liked while writing it?
Yes. I think it was really profound when I did all of the reading of what people had written. Some of these notable figures in history of the time that just didn't fit the box of historical greatness come alive in this book. So there's this incredible character, Eliška Junkova, who befriends my grandmother and her husband, and she was the fastest race car female driver, probably of all times, because she competed with men and beat them. And I watched interviews with her on YouTube and really got to know her. So I feel like I'm connected to her through writing this book. And I know that people will fall in love with her story as much as they will fall in love with my grandmother's and grandfather's story. So yeah, that was really fun to find people that I hadn't really learned about before doing the research.
So tell the audience where you can buy your books.
Well, Authors Press and Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and yeah.
Last but not least, do you have any advice for people who maybe struggle the same way as you with no agent or similar? Do you have any advice for them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I really was happy to publish the book, but I didn't realize that it's important to get critics to review your book first. And so that was kind of a blocking point in getting the word out there and getting people to notice the book. So I was really happy that I was contacted by Authors Press, because they've given me an opportunity to be published in a magazine, My Story, Journey Through Life. They've advertised my book in a way that my publisher wasn't able to do. It's a small company. And then this event has been so great for me. Meeting not only translators, dignitaries and publishers, but getting contact information to try. My next step is to get it published in German, German and Czech languages. So I've made all of those contacts here. And then, of course, to have this book signing here and the interview, I feel like it's giving me a public voice that I wouldn't have had without Authors Press. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate your time
thank you.
to be here, and that was all the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Authors Press.